Most people don't fall behind financially because they're lazy. They fall behind because they're focused on the wrong things. And in 2026, a few specific decisions are going to matter way more than everything else combined. So in this video, I am going to walk you through 5 things that will actually move the needle. Just 5 things overall I feel like you must be doing to get ahead financially in 2026. But before we jump into the video, comment down below, what do you feel like is holding you back the most financially right now? Is it your income, your spending, investing? Maybe. You just don't know what the next move is. Go ahead and comment that down below. Now jumping into the first thing that I feel like you got to be doing to get ahead financially is you got to get control of your cash flow first. Because in order for you to optimize anything in your finances, you need clarity. You need to know how much money do you have coming in and how much money do you have going out. And most people don't actually know where their money goes month in and month out. A lot of people are a little bit too scared to even look at some of their finances because it can be very overwhelming. And I completely understand that. Sometimes this stuff will even happen to me where I'll go look at my bank account and I am like, wait a minute, what is this charge? And I am sitting there trying to, recall when I, bought this thing from this place. And so nobody is perfect. But at the end of the day, you cannot make confident decisions with your money if you don't really understand your money. And if everything just feels super random for you. And I am not saying you got to track every single expense down to the T. Don't have to do some extreme form of budgeting. It is just mainly about getting awareness and getting clarity on what your finances look like month in and month out. And so I feel like a realistic approach for this is to try to track your spending for 30 to 60 days. And I'll even make a video probably sometime the next week or two or the next couple of weeks just talking about budgeting in 2026 and what I am doing, as well as what a lot of people could be doing to try to get ahead with their budgeting for this year. But I would say start out by trying to track your spending for at least 1 to 2 months. Start identifying where your fixed expenses are, where your flexible expenses are, and then where you have different leaks in your finances. Things that you didn't even realize you are spending money on. And some of these things you don't even have to track your spending for. Like, for example, if you are living in an apartment right now, you know exactly what your rent's going to be. You know exactly what your internet bill is going to be. Yeah, the water's going to fluctuate. The electricity will too, but you can probably guess what range it'll fall under. And so a lot of the fixed expenses you can even start to get on top of ahead of time, which is great. And one thing I want to emphasize here is I am not saying that you have to create these super harsh restrictions on things, but if you can create kind of like soft rules for yourself. So for example, let's say you see that one of your leaks is that you are going out to eat way too much. You thought you were spending $50 a week to go out to eat. You are actually spending $150. Well, instead of restricting yourself and saying, hey, I am not going to go out to eat at all, I am cutting myself fully off. Maybe let's just limit it to, going out to eat once or twice instead of 4 or 5 times. So that is what I mean by creating a soft rule. Just creating kind of a guideline that you try to stay within, or, a barrier, a guardrail, if you will. And for me personally, what really surprised me when I first started to track my spending, especially when I was looking a little bit more into my credit cards, was some of the different things that I would spend money on. I am kind of more the type of person that does the death by 1,000 cuts. So instead of buying a really large item, I am going to 7-Eleven every day, and I am getting Doritos and, a candy bar or something like that. I don't do that anymore, but that was at one point. I was like, damn, I am spending a lot of money at 7-Eleven every month because I am spending $5, $6, $7 here and there. And although that purple bag of Doritos absolutely slaps, I definitely had to, reel it in a little bit and just do it a lot less often. And that was one way to just start to save money for myself. So that is the first thing I would emphasize here, is get control of your cash flow. Now, the second thing I would say is try to build a financial buffer before taking any big risks. And the idea here is that you want to have some stability before any type of aggression or any type of risk-taking that you do. And if you constantly have different stress, then it is hard to be consistent with your money and building up a solid amount of cash flow. And all I am saying here is try to build up an emergency fund if you can, because if you can build up any type of emergency fund, this will prevent you from panic selling any of your stocks or assets. It is going to prevent you from relying on a credit card if you don't have enough money. And it is also going to prevent you from making any bad career decisions. And this is not me being pessimistic, being like, oh, something's going to hit, and you are going to have to panic sell. It is more about being prepared and being on top of things. And so I feel like a realistic approach for this is just to start out small. Just try to save up $500, and that is going to be your cushion. That is going to be your buffer, and then try to save up 1 month of expenses. You can keep this very boring, very liquid. You can put in a savings account, a high-yield savings account, but make sure that this is separate from your spending accounts. It is in its own bucket. It is not tied in with your checking account or the main account that you spend from Tree to keep it separate. That way you can see the cushion building up over time. And I've definitely had times even in the past 6 months where looking back I was like, damn, I am really glad I have an emergency fund. For example, I had some car problems that popped up a couple months back and I had to spend, I think it was like $1,400 on repairs for my car. Now I didn't have a ton of money in my checking account at the time. Oh shit, that could have been a disaster. So the $1,400 I pulled from my emergency fund, then I resupplied it over time. I put that $1,400 back eventually, little by little, but I was really glad to have that cash account because I was not stressed. I didn't have to sell any stocks to cover this payment. Like it really saved my ass. And I've also had times like years ago in 2020. I remember I didn't have enough money to pay rent, so I did have to sell, I think it was like $200 or $300 in stocks to cover rent. And that was a horrible feeling, so I definitely would say try to build up that buffer if you can, because a buffer is going to buy you time, and time buys you options. So that is the second thing. The third thing I would say in 2026 you want to try to start doing is investing consistently, even if it feels small, because momentum matters a lot more than perfection. What a lot of people do is they try to wait until they feel ready, or they're like, I am going to wait until the market crashes, and then I am going to put money in. The reality is if you just invest small and consistently over time, this is going to start to build your identity as an investor. You are going to start to feel confident, even if you are throwing $25 a week in. Before you know it, you are going to look up a month later and be like, oh cool, I am at 100. And then, a couple months later, you are like, oh, I am at 500. This is cool. And then maybe your 500 is even growing for you a little bit. So now it is at, 510, 515, and as you start to see this growth, it is going to motivate you to try to put more money in. Because I remember when this first started happening to me, I was like, I am going to do 25 a week. And then I was like, oh, I am starting to see a lot of progress here. Let's try to go up to 50 and then 100, and so this will absolutely motivate you. And one thing I want to emphasize is that market uncertainty is not a reason to sit out. At the end of the day, time in the market beats timing the market, and that will always be a fact. The easiest way to do this is just to automate your contributions. Tree to just have the money automatically pulled out of your account. Even if it is $25 a week, even if it is $10 a week. Tree to have an investing habit where you are consistently putting money in. And this is not investing advice. I am not a financial advisor, but this is just what has worked for me. And I would say try to just focus on very simple investments. So for me, like I invest in the S&P 500, I just buy shares of VUND. I don't even check my investing accounts daily. I maybe check them once or twice a week because a lot of times that daily movement, it is not really much, so it is not going to make a big difference. And over time, you'll get very numb to this. You are not even going to want to look at your investing accounts that much, especially if you are a long-term investor. One day or 1 week over a 20-30 year period is really not going to make any impact at all. And so the thing I want you to think about here is the psychology of building that habit is going to matter a lot more early on. And like I said before, your confidence is going to start to grow, especially through repetition, and then you'll invest more and hopefully you'll be seeing really positive results over time. You don't need to be a genius. You don't need to throw in a ton of money. You don't need to sit there and wait for the marketplace to crash. You just need to start and then stay consistent. So that is the third thing I would say. Now the fourth thing is to be very intentional with lifestyle upgrades. Because every time you make a big lifestyle upgrade, it is going to come with a long-term cost. There is an opportunity cost to all these things. If you drop $50,000 on a new car, that $50,000 could have been compounded over 30 years, and that can add up to a shit ton of money. And lifestyle inflation can happen very quietly. People do not realize it. They slowly get raises. They keep spending more and more money, and then before they know it, they're spending way more money a couple years later than they previously were, even though their expenses didn't need to go up that much. They just, they got raises, they got promotions, they moved jobs, but they slowly just started spending more and more money. So lifestyle creep can absolutely happen, and small monthly increases into your expenses can compound into years of delayed retirement. And so that is the way I try to think of it, is every dollar that you are investing today is saving you time on the back end. And the more money you invest, the earlier you invest, the sooner you can get done with all this 9-to-5 bullshit and just do what you want and have the freedom that you want. Spending should always match your values. Do not let people pressure you into spending. If people are roasting you for driving a used car, you should not give a shit about that. Do what is best for you, because at the end of the day, they have an $800 monthly car payment, and you don't. You are saving 10 grand a year that they're spending. So make sure not to conform to societal pressure to try to live in a certain lifestyle. Just do what is best for you and live within your means. One thing you can definitely do here when it comes to lifestyle upgrades is try to delay upgrades by a month and really ask yourself, does this improve my life, or is this just me trying to, seek approval from other people? And so a lifestyle upgrade that I delayed for the longest time was getting a new car. I was using my grandma's old car that she gave to me. People would roast me for it. I did not care. The car was paid off, I didn't have a car payment, and the car worked just fine. So I absolutely delayed that lifestyle upgrade. Now, a different one that I actually paid for, and I was really glad I paid for, was getting a new laptop. This was like in 2023. Because when I was making YouTube videos on my old channel that I no longer have, my computer was super slow when it came to editing. So getting a new computer and taking my time before buying one, I feel like was just a great move overall. So really just think about any type of big financial decisions or big spending or purchases you have to make. And I want to reiterate that you don't have to say no to everything. Just be very intentional about your spending, especially big purchases. So that is the fourth thing. Now the fifth and final thing is to try to simplify your financial system so that you stick with it long term. Because a simple system is going to be way better than trying to set up this perfect grand scheme plan. And I really do feel like complexity is going to lead to burnout. If you have way too many accounts, you are going to have decision fatigue tree to keep things very simplified. You don't need to have a brokerage account in 5 different companies. You can just have it in one place. You could have your Roth in one place. Of course, your 401k is going to be through your employer. But I even had a coworker at a previous job where he had like 7 or 8 different accounts. And I remember telling him, I am like, dude, why would you do that to yourself? Like your taxes must be a pain in the ass because you have 5K in this account, then you have 8K in this account, and they were all just regular investing accounts. Like none of them were even tax advantaged or anything. So I remember looking back on that and thinking that is so complex. I can see why he is not very consistent with money. Not judging him, but at the end of the day, it is just making his life a lot harder than it needs to be. And so you should try to set up a financial system for yourself that reduces thinking, and it doesn't require more thinking. So like I said, one way to do this is to have fewer accounts. Another way to do it is to try to have automatic transfers. So kind of like what I said earlier, if you are going to be investing, just have a system that automatically pulls $25 out of your account every week or whatever that number is for you. And try to have very clear rules for investing, saving, or any discretionary spending that you are doing. And I've even fallen victim to this, where I remember early on when I first opened my Roth IRA, I think I went and bought like 30 or 40 stocks. And then after like a couple of weeks, I was like, okay, this is way too complex. I am not doing this. And even this past year back in August, I didn't have as many stocks. I only had like 10 stocks and then 2 ETFs. It was just VU, SHD, and then a bunch of dividend growth stocks. But I ended up just selling all of my stocks and going all in on just basically 3 ETFs, which really simplified the investing side of things and just made my life a lot easier. Because if your financial system is super complex, it is going to feel pretty heavy, and you are probably not going to want to maintain it long term. So those are the 5 things that I feel like you've got to be doing to get ahead financially in 2026. That is it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, drop a like down below, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.